Commission hearing on September 2nd, 2020 to order. Just a couple of things. This is a very informal process, and so I'm going to introduce who the people are up here. My name is Dan Dunn, and I happen to be the chair this year. And this is Steve Bladholm to my immediate right, and then Randy Engelstead over there. That is Tom Nakmus. He is from the City of Fargo, the engineering department. This is Dan Eberhardt from the Special Assessment Department, Doug Durgan, Special Assessment, and Linda Stewart, Special Assessment. And back there is Steve Sprague, and he's with the Auditor's Office. And again, this is a very informal process. What we'll do is I'm going to have Tom talk about some funding sources for just a second, and he's got a couple of slides that he wants to visit about. After that, then I'm going to call according to the project, and because we're being recorded, it is necessary that you approach the microphones over there and ask your questions, and we'll do the best we can to answer those questions. So, Tom, go ahead.
Thank you. We just want to do a brief presentation. One of the things that we realized is through the certification process, our notices didn't include the share of federal funds in some of our federal aid projects. So we just want to give the complete picture of how those projects were funded. So, like I said, the certifications did not include the federal aid. They showed only local funds, did not include the federal funds. And so it's really three projects: 10th Street, 52nd Avenue, and Main Avenue. So on 10th Street, the total project cost was about $7.2 million. About $4 million of that was funded through federal funds, about $500,000 from the state. And then the local share ends up being about $2.8 million, where about $500,000 of that was sales tax. And then you can see water and sewer also picked up a portion of that. And ultimately, the amount that gets special assessed was just over $1 million on that project. Similar deal on 52nd Avenue. Total project cost was just under $23 million. Federal share was about 9.3, and then there's a number of local shares for that project. Total local share 13.4 million. You guys can see the breakdown there, but about 10.6 million of that local share is special assessed. Main Avenue, about $13 million project cost, about 7.3 comes from the federal highway, just under $1 million comes from the state. The local share is 4.9 million, and 2.1 of that is special assessed. So again, we just thought it was important. The notices that went out didn't show that complete funding package. It just showed the local share. So we just want to provide a better total picture of the project funding.
Thanks, Tom. All right, we will start with PR 19F. So, Pauline, I believe that's yours.
I just want, since special assessments is new to me, I moved here in '93 from back east, never heard of a special assessment until I came here, which was shocking. Okay, I see your numbers for our area, and I see what we're all obligated to pay the residents in that area. I was wondering, are the bills equally divided? Is it everyone's getting the same that I have to pay?
Dan, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, the mill and overlay was done on a front foot basis, so everybody's paying the same front foot cost.
Front foot cost, okay. And how about, I noticed there were blacktop in some of the cul-de-sacs and not the others. So does that require an additional okay by the residents in that cul-de-sac?
If they were open cul-de-sacs where the city is taking over those properties due to flood mitigations, those were picked up by the city, those costs.
Okay, is it possible for me to get an itemized bill for my property?
Yes.
Okay, because I have a driveway that comes off the cul-de-sac, and then I'm on River Drive. I don't know the frontage as far as footage goes, but okay. And I noticed they replaced some curbing, which I'm not a curbologist, but really, I mean, seriously, there didn't look like it needed to be replaced, actually.
That would have been part of the total project cost.
And
I
Tom,
know, but why did it have to be replaced?
I'll kick it over to Tom for an explanation.
Yeah. Good question. So as part of those mill and overlay projects, what we do, the curb that is replaced is because it is holding water. So we go through and we'll mud jack the curbs, and so that's where we drill a little hole in it.
Right,
They
and
inject,
yeah, but you
lift
didn't
it.
mud jack. You took everything out and put a new curb in.
Yep, so we mud jack where we can, and where the mud jackers can't do that, then we'll replace the curb to ensure the flow line of the curb and gutter can carry the water to the inlet. So it helps our road long-term, by not ponding water on the road is helpful for the longevity of the pavement. But then it just ensures that we're not holding water in the roadway as well.
Okay. Well, I think that's just basically my questions. Is there going to be blacktop? I mean, are we done with River Drive up to our point? Or are you going to add some blacktop further down the road that we're gonna have to pay for? Or is that the final overlay on River Drive up to that point?
So I'm
Do you
not.
understand the question?
Not fully, but here's what I'll say. So we do have an annual pavement preservation projects throughout the city that we address pavement issues. You know, typically a mill and overlay, it ranges probably every 15 to 25 years. Again, it depends on the pavement condition for that. I could have Dan probably talk about the assessment. If we were to do additional work on River Drive, it is bound to have additional work in the future.
I was just wondering if that, I'm sorry, but the, whatever's on there now, that crushed whatever, without blacktop, that is what's gonna be there. Like, there's not gonna be additional work, in other words, onto that River Drive where you overlaid it?
There isn't anything currently programmed for it.
Okay, so that is the final finish on River Drive. I mean, you black tar cul-de-sacs, I don't know over what we have on River Drive, but you didn't tar River Drive or blacktop it. So
Correct.
what determines whether you blacktop it or don't blacktop it?
So
I'm,
a good portion of River Drive, I believe, and I'm sorry, I can't recall it. A good portion of it, I believe, is concrete. And so we wouldn't typically overlay concrete with asphalt. Typically, our pavement preservation projects like this one are for mill and overlays of asphalt roadways. And so I think a portion of River Drive is concrete, correct?
right, but that's further down, and I
Okay.
walk that every morning, and, you know, that's the road that seriously, I don't know what blocks they are, but those are the ones that seriously need repair. Okay, so what I understand, I don't want to sound like, you know, repetitive or anything, but whatever's on there now on River Drive, that's the final finish, whatever you did. And some ordered blacktop and cul-de-sacs. I'd like to know if they signed off on that, because that's an additional cost, right? Or am I not seeing that correctly?
Yeah, I'm sorry, without looking at our pavement, I don't have the information here within our special assessment information to probably answer your question. I could certainly follow up with you. I could certainly look into the pavement that we have in the area, the age of it, see when we last performed projects, and try to estimate when we would do future projects.
Well,
Because I just,
yeah.
unfortunately, I don't know that I have the information to answer your question currently. I'd be happy to follow up with you,
well,
though.
now that you mentioned it, you know, our River Drive was one of the thoroughfares for saving the city with the mud dikes. We had big trucks, and not too long ago, we still had those big dirt trucks going down River Drive to do Rose Creek over there. So, I mean, yeah, it was the forefront of saving the city. So we have to incur that payment.
So there again,
Whatever.
I think Dan can probably better answer your question, but based on my understanding of where your parcel is, if we were to do anything to River Drive, I don't believe you'd be special assessed for it.
Any additional work? You already did the work. That's why I got billed for it. So,
Right.
and you're saying any additional work to River Drive,
Correct.
up to my point. You're not going to blacktop. That is the final finish.
Again,
Whatever you've
that,
got. Oh, well, I still need to lock you in on that answer, because you could come down a couple years down the road and say, well, now we can blacktop it. And you know, and give us another whatever. Do you know what I mean?
So again, it is the
You
parcel
will
being
never
shown.
blacktop it. Is that what you're saying? You'll never blacktop that area? I just want to make sure I know what you're talking about.
I believe what was done, Tom, wasn't it mill and overlaid and then seal coated right away later?
Right,
that
it
year?
looks like aggregate on it, little,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
they-
not blacktop, so I'm just
there
wondering
should
if it
be-
will ever be blacktop.
They should have mill and overlaid first, then a seal coat over the top.
Right,
So that's what, they did the blacktop first, and then later that season came back through and did the mill.
No,
no,
two
you
years
didn't
later,
do the
we would have.
blacktop. Oh, 2 years ago you did a blacktop, and then
No.
you did the,
So that I apologize. Again, the information I have about the special assessments are very different than our pavement management program. I apologize. I'm not.
well, I don't know if
following what
I'm
you're
not, I
asking.
apologize for not trying to understand, you know.
So
I just don't
so
want to get hit with another bill
so
because you
let-
didn't finish your project.
No, so let's answer
That's
this
all.
question. Okay, so you are at 3807, which is highlighted, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That is,
And so Dan, her frontage is in the cul-de-sac, correct?
Correct.
So if we were to pave any remaining portion of River Drive, would she be special assessed for that?
I would say at this point, no,
Okay,
because of we looked at that early on when we come back and do that, a lot of those are all buyouts.
okay.
So that would be incurred by the city.
So does that answer your question? That's your concern, right? If additional paving is done on River Drive, whether it's north of your property or south of your property, that's your concern, correct? Whether
No,
or
I
not
mean,
you'd be special assessed for it?
I think I kind of understand you. The stuff you did now with the aggregate or whatever, and you sealed it, and that's going to last for what? How many years?
So we do a seal coat. That's
Yeah.
where we
Right. It seals everything.
yep.
but
So
how
we
long
do
does
that every 8 years typically, and that's 100% city funded.
Okay.
After a mill and overlay, the city does that. That's 100% city funded, not special assessed.
When are they doing that?
So we do seal coats 2 years after we pave. So this project was paved in last year, correct? In 2019?
I think so.
I'm pretty sure. Because we are
So
looking
seal
at.
coat involves what? When you say seal coat, what does
So
that mean?
a seal coat, what we do is we come in, the contractor sprays an oil over the roadway, and then they drop little aggregate, little rocks on top
Right.
of it and seal it up. We do those 2 years after a mill and overlay. And then, like I said earlier, that's 100% city funded. That's not special
Okay.
assessed.
All right.
And that's just a pavement preservation project that we do throughout the city.
Okay. All right. I guess I don't think I have any more questions, but you'll give me that itemized bill, and you still, I don't know if you understood me as far as the other people in the cul-de-sac, if they have to sign off for blacktop and why it was blacktopped.
At the beginning of the project, there would have been notifications sent out for a protest.
Can I have those names, actually, who okayed the blacktop in the cul-de-sac?
Well, if there were insufficient protest, the project would go forth through the city commission.
So you're saying if you didn't hear from anyone, it was your okay to do the blacktop?
Correct.
Well, there's 2 cul-de-sacs prior to that don't have blacktop. So you think people are gonna say, no, I don't want blacktop?
Well, we deemed it necessary to go in there and perform the mill and overlay.
Well, that I
Through-
understand,
through our-
but the
through our-
blacktop is a whole different story. This is
Well-
just another additional cost.
It would have been costed out to those cul-de-sacs. Those
Right,
that received.
I know it would be
And those that
cost to us,
didn't,
but who initiated who initiated that,
the project itself,
yes.
that would have been through our engineering department and then approved by the city commission.
Okay, so it's basically, the first 2 cul-de-sacs don't have it. It's just that, whatever, mill overlay you call it. Our cul-de-sac has blacktop. I didn't call for blacktop. And I know I'm getting charged for blacktop.
But you would have received notice that it was coming forth and you could have protested at the beginning of that project.
But I can't understand, would people actually protest not having blacktop? Because that is a nice smoother finish. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. Why would somebody protest? They would protest not having the blacktop. not having the blacktop. I mean,
So
am
again,
I making sense to you?
again, I'm not trying to cut you off.
No, I know you're not.
I
but
think it
don't
would
get
be best if I could follow up with you after this, just because I think some of your concerns I can better address once I have an understanding of what was performed for sure on this project and some of the other cul-de-sacs that you've referenced that have different pavements.
They have the same as River Drive, up to my point. They have
Right.
that aggregate, whatever you call it. But ours is the only cul-de-sac I noticed that had the blacktop.
So likely what's different though is just the age of the pavement. And that's why we would have done some and not the others.
You know,
And,
when I
and that's where I'd like to be able to look at it and look at when
Okay,
we
well, I
perform that
understand.
work and when we'd be potentially programming, work in those other areas. And again, I apologize. But once I am able to look at that information, I think I'm going to be able to answer your question.
Okay, to me, it just doesn't make sense why somebody would protest the blacktop, which is a nicer finish than just leaving it like River Drive. But, like you said, you'd have to protest it, basically, that you don't want it. You would automatically do it if you don't hear anybody from it, which to me is not logical thinking. So, come on, guys, stick up for me. Just,
Well, the bottom line is that the
Yeah.
engineering department does their assessment, and they've got a policy and procedures for that. And if it's determined that it's necessary to do some work in a particular area, then they will bring that forward. And then the homeowners that are affected by it have the opportunity to protest or basically have questions about it. And then it's at that point, the city commission will decide whether it should go forward or not. And so, but Tom is.
sorry, the blacktop, other cul-de-sacs look just the same, because when I knew you were gonna start this project, I checked them all out. Actually, I should have taken pictures, because, that cul-de-sac didn't look like any of the other cul-de-sacs, and,
There must be a reason, and Tom will explain that to you offline.
okay, well, it would be on record, I guess, right, Tom? When you get back to me, it will be on record?
Yep, if you want me to email you, if you can provide your email, if you want some sort of written, I'd be glad to do that.
Okay.
As long as you provide your email address to us, I can certainly follow up that way if you prefer.
And if it turns out that you're not satisfied with whatever information you get, you can certainly come back to Dan Eberhardt at the special assessments. And then there's a city commission hearing that's set for, I believe, October 5th.
October 5th.
Right, and again, you can address your concerns directly to the city commission. But again, the hierarchy is kind of start with Tom, and then Dan and the city commission.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. Linda, what's next?
We have 52nd Avenue, B and 19A.
Okay,
There's two of them, those two gentlemen.
so if you want to come up and use the podium.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
I live on 52nd Avenue, 4732 51st. I moved up there, and the neighborhood wasn't even finished in 2008. And your letter really doesn't explain to me. I watched those pipes being installed, and your letter, it just says it benefits my property. How? So it doesn't, if it had explained to me how that really benefits my property, and here is a list of the things that it benefits your property for, I wouldn't have to come here and bother you.
Dan, do you want to explain the benefits? But
Okay.
thank you for coming and asking. That's a very good
It's a
question.
pleasure.
Yes, go ahead, Dan.
Every parcel in the city of Fargo is affected by one north-south, one east-west arterial. 52nd Avenue is your east-west arterial. That shares the cost to a broader spectrum because it's a widely traveled or heavily trafficked roadway. The same way you pay for 52nd, you don't pay for Main Avenue. It's done in the same format where that area pays for it, so we're not assessing everybody all the time. You carry a single-family indirect benefit to that parcel, which I believe is $15 a front foot,
Which is capped.
which is a cap. 30 on the new, I apologize.
But where did those pipes go? My thinking was it was Horace that actually wanted to hook up to our water and sewer.
Okay, the water is through Casper Water. That's their pipe. Yeah.
Section wasn't
In that,
updated.
yeah, in that roadway. And the pipe, the water actually started from Veterans and went past 63rd. There was some storm sewer involved in that area for the drainage of 52nd Avenue. And that's what probably the pipes you saw. We did some drain work, added the box culverts along, across the drain, et cetera, for drainage of stormwater. So that's the piping you probably would have seen. So that's getting the water off the road, getting it into our drain system, and getting it out of the area.
So you're not paying for it to go out to Horace or come back from Horace?
Good. Thank you for letting me know that. Another question that's really been burning in my head for a long time. Now, your letter says if, let's say, the developer initiates certain works for a neighborhood, they're building a new neighborhood, that means the developer pays 100% of the cost, right?
The cost for a new development through the city of Fargo, the developer initiates it, correct, but the special assessments is to that neighborhood and applied in through special assessments, so it's 100% assessed.
I didn't know that because I thought a long time ago, and I have a good memory. I remember when I moved into the neighborhood, I bought my house in 2008. I had to pay $7,000 for a special assessment,
Correct.
which I didn't know. The developer or that person that sold me the house, which was I think country something, they didn't say that. So when you said they pay 100% of it, I thought, why did I have to pay that assessment at that time?
The infrastructure is 100% assessed to the benefiting properties. The developer initiates it, owns the property, we install it, and we special assess it.
Another thing, another burning question in my head that I just can't get my head wrapped around it, which is, okay, so we live in a community, it's a city called Fargo. Now, if let's say you add a new stoplight, let's say 1,000 feet away from me, why is only that area assessed for it? Now, I thought we live in a community, so why not spread it around everybody who lives in the city? Because everybody is going to use that light, not just the people who live in that neighborhood. That's something I really can't understand. And I'm sure you're doing what you're doing because you have more knowledge than I do about this. And so I'm not trying to, in any way to, how shall I say, be a pain.
Well, as an example, let's use a traffic signal as an example, sir. You're paying for that traffic signal in your area, but you're not paying for one up on Main Avenue or any other place in the city. So it's localized. So you're not getting a new special assessment for everything we do.
No, I understand that.
So
but
we
I
try to
think,
localize it.
Yeah, I understand that each area will pay. Why not just make it a whole city pays for it because all the city uses it? Let me give you an example. One of my acquaintances or friend, he's 82 years old. His neighborhood was paved, and he got an assessment for, was it $5,000 or so? And this person has only one income, Social Security. Can you imagine how much money that is for somebody in his predicament? Maybe I can eat that $5,000, but that person can't because they don't have any other income, and they're 82 years old, for God's sake.
We do have a program for assistance, and that special assessment, that total number isn't a one-time payment. It's spread over 25 years.
Yeah, I noticed.
So,
Yeah.
so it's a reduced cost over those 25 years to defray some of that cost instead of the lump
That's
sum
it.
payment.
Yeah, at a 3.99.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I'll answer your question directly, though, in terms of why can't it be assessed to the entire city
Yes.
if it's near you? And that is by state law, we're required to show benefit to a particular area based upon what was done. And it would be very difficult legally for us to be able to show benefit of a street traffic signal in your area on 52nd with somebody that lives way up in way North Fargo. We can show a benefit for a traffic light up in their area, but we can't really show it in your area. And so that's why when it comes to assessments, it's really localized, or those people that are going to use that improvement to the city most likely or most often.
Just to be on the light side, can my community, the area where I live, for that light that they were assessed for, could they just put a gate and make people pay to go through? That don't live in there. That's just a joke, sorry. Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
It was a pleasure, sir.
It was a pleasure, thank you.
Andre's next.
Same project?
Yep.
Okay. Good morning.
Morning. My name is Andre Arneson, local business owner, City of Fargo. I'm in reference to the project on 52nd Avenue. My property is 5402 and 5406. I've kind of got a pie-shaped lot along 52nd Avenue there. And just got a few questions. And back to this gentleman, what he was visiting with, just because he struck a couple questions for me, I figured I'd throw them at you. The interest that's paid on our specials, who obtains or who gets that interest? Is that a lender, or does it go back to the City of Fargo then? Is City of Fargo considered the lender on that?
We bond our projects through improvement bonds, and we were allowed to add a 0.75% above that for our carrying costs and early payments, et cetera. But the rest is all for the bonding.
And so the bond is covered by, or it's carried by a lender per se, but the city pulls 1.5 for their
0.75.
1.75?
No, what?
0.75.
Oh, 0.75, okay. Well, I was just curious because I thought, hey, it's a pretty good gig if you guys can spread it out and still get the interest on it too. But another quick question on this gentleman's was just, you mentioned the benefit of the area. And again, I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around a few of these items too. Like you mentioned the street sign, street light benefiting that area. Is that always a set standard then for the area? Like, does it say 70, or let's say, does it say a quarter mile in circumference of the project? How is the area of the city determined for the project?
It depends what type of project you're looking at. Paving is a budding property, typically, except for an arterial where we use an arterial band. Water, sanitary is also on a front foot basis to the abutting property or the benefiting property. Storm sewer could be spread localized and then to a wider area depending on the size of the pipe. A localized pipe, we go up to a 36-inch. Anything above that is spread to a wider area. Streetlights is to it on a front foot basis. Also, traffic signals, we typically do not assess. When we do, it's to the typically halfway to the next streetlight.
Thank you. I just was curious clarification on that.
And
So
that's
I
something
appreciate
the
that.
engineering department will make decisions on, true?
Okay.
And so they do a study as to, what the appropriate size of the district should be.
That makes sense. Because each project's a little different, so it does make sense that then the surrounding is different. The main reason that I'm here today is basically the assessments that I have on my property, and I'm glad that you're able to pull it up on the map there. 5402, 5406, those are my properties there. I've got a drain ditch 27 that runs behind me, and then 52nd Avenue frontage. I would like to throw out that I'm super happy that 52nd Avenue got expanded in front of me. Improving the city is awesome for local business, so great thing. The one thing that I'm asking for today is to take a look at the irregular shape of my lot, and I'm kind of hoping that I could get a deduction in some of the assessments that I have. I did visit with the city and kind of looked at some of the stats on how it was, how the footage was pulled across. They do a 35-foot setback, as you mentioned, right away to look at that property, and that drops my frontage down to 685.22, which was what it was assessed on. And then they're looking at the 313 per foot for that front assessment. When I look at the map, and I got a pretty good city map of your guys's, of the plots, I guess, well, straight up, I'm just asking for a deduction in the assessment. And if you look down the road from me on 52nd Avenue, when you pull up the plot map, I feel that a good section of my property to the east is just not as beneficial as the next guy down the road from me. Now, whether that's 200 feet in, 300 feet in, 100 feet in, I think that's something that the city should take a look at and see if they have a comp. Because when you maybe back out on that screen and look to the west of my property, all of the other properties have got pretty decent backset in them. And like 5409, the basketball academy, I think that's actually changed now, the name has. But even that lot just exactly next to me, you can see that he's butted up with that building and he can use that property for something. I hope to be able to build on my property and you know, add value to this property down the road. But I guess the biggest thing I'm asking for is a reduction in the assessment based on the irregular shape of that lot and the fact that I can't move a building and put it on that property along that frontage. I feel that I'm paying a little bit extra. If you look at a wedge, wedge is half of a square, and I feel that the one portion of my property there that I'm not getting a full benefit as far as when you look at some of the other properties down the road.
And so you're not necessarily contesting the work that was done or the amount that was assessed, but essentially you're asking for a discount or reduction of the total assessment.
Correct. Based on the irregular size of my lot.
Okay. And what I would say is we'll certainly take that under advisement. We'll visit about it, and then we will get back to you with the decision that we would make. And as mentioned to Pauline, the city commission meeting, I think, is October 5th. And so if you if you aren't satisfied with some of the answers that we may give to you, you can certainly appear before them, because ultimately it's a city commission that makes the final decisions on any assessments.
Perfect. Yeah, just asking to take into consideration that. One other thing that I'll mention, just kind of food for thought. I bought into my property in 2003, so I had it prior to being annexed into the city of Fargo. It used to be all field. So again, I love seeing the improvement. Helps me out, helps business grow. Love it. However, once we got into the annexation and became city of Fargo, since 2009 up to current, right now I've got about $83,000 assessed to that property. The new one coming in is $240,000 and then an additional 13. So as of 2021, if it goes in effect the full amount, I'm looking at about $336,865 in assessments. We had drain ditch improvement behind me. We had the intersection for 52nd Avenue. It's a growing area. It's tough to swallow that big of a number when I'm looking at it for the assessed value, because I'm thinking to myself, can I sell my land and do I get that much more value of it? And I think that's the argument as well. You've improved it, so it's worth this much more. But just want to throw it out there for food for thought that I've got. You know, I went from just regular property tax to within 10 years here, going up to $336,000. You know, basically it's about $337,000 in taxes. And I also know that we've still got work to do on 52nd Avenue, right? Because we're going to be working to tear the bridge out and stuff that connects Cheyenne, basically that roundabout to 52nd Avenue. And I'm assuming that I'm going to be paying taxes on that or not.
No.
Do you guys know?
No, you will not.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a plus. No, that's a plus.
And the reason is because there's federal or state funding that's going to take care of that.
And their 52nd Avenue portion's already covered.
Okay, got it.
And you guys mentioned that to begin with the presentation that the federal dollar amount had not been shown on the breakdown, but it had been deducted, I'm assuming. Yeah. So unfortunately, it wasn't by the way, the Fed is paying 10 million and you get to reduce your assessments. No such luck there.
No, and some of the reasons why that, just transparency, full disclosure. The other part of it is when you look at the total project cost, I think it was 22 million or so, and the assessed amount is 10 million. That just is designed to show that there is a lot of the cost that is not assessed, which is obviously a good thing, which
Yes.
means that you pay less. Instead of paying 22 million, you're part of a group that's paying about 10.6 million. So that was the reason for that information.
Makes sense. Lastly is just the completion of these improvements. You know, the letter kind of states it's completed. I guess I've been in contact with the city because of some of the landscaping and such that has been done in front of my property. And I'm not sure if this is the right committee to bring it up, but I'm here, so I'm going to bring it up. When this improvement went through, they obviously regraded and they made some great improvements. I've got a walkway in front of my business. Awesome, right? But right now, as it sits, they've basically defaced the property value in front of me, and I'm hoping that it's not because it's completed. I hope that there's going to be some additional landscape work done to that area. I know KPH was one of the main bid awardees for that job. I think they oversee some of it, but I know the city of Fargo has been very involved with it. Long story short is that the drainage is horrible in front of my property. There was standing water in it. And, you know, basically one of the improvements was the drain ditches. And I've got some manholes that run along the ditch. So in my opinion, I'm kind of like, okay, why isn't the grade set proper to run down to these drains? I think the city is working on it still with me. I hope that they are. But the other big thing is the seed that they use to plant the grass. Again, it kind of goes down the totem pole for who did what for the workmanship there. But the grass is basically, I want to call it like monkey seed weed. I don't know what it is, but it's horrible. And when you drive down 52nd Avenue right now, you can clearly see what where the improvement line was. Because you've got great, nice grass that's been being maintained from the city for years, and the rest of it is just complete garbage. I visited with the landscaper and they said, well, that is one of those weeds that's very, very difficult to get out. They said a lot of the times that you end up tilling it, rounding it up, tilling it again and rounding it up, and then seeding with a proper seed. Again, I don't know if this has anything, it probably doesn't have anything to do with the assessments, but it is part of that completion of the job. And I want to make sure that those areas are still being looked at before the book is closed.
And you are right, that is not our jurisdiction, but Tom would be the one that could have some information on that.
Yeah, so what I'd like to do is have our project manager get a hold of you. So I'll get your contact information from Linda and just be sure that we follow up with you and have our project manager meet you on site, go over your concerns, be sure that we do have proper drainage there. And then we will ultimately be addressing the seeding and weed control throughout the project as well.
Yeah, that is something that the city addresses then, like the weed control portion of it.
Yeah, so
Because I would think that a good portion of the bid obviously is for landscape or that final grade, final finish type thing. And I just am hoping that a contractor doesn't get by with leaving an area completely full of weeds and counting that as grass.
I'm sorry, but it happened to me too. You could see night and day. You could see nice fresh grass, then you could see a whole pile of weeds where the city just got through finishing what they did on the berm. And we called them back. I'm sorry to interrupt, but they called them back and they put better grass in, which was comparable to the one that was already there. So, I don't know, you're right. I don't know where they get the seed, but it's all weeds, weed seed.
And if it's a process over the years that they control those weeds and, obviously it's grass takes time to get established, I'm okay with that. But I have been in contact, and what is the gentleman's name then, that you're saying that is the lead of that?
So our lead project manager has been Aaron Edgar out on that project. You've maybe been in touch with him.
I believe I have. And so that's the other thing is that I'm pretty confident I have with Aaron, and he's been working with me, but it was also one of those things, the project has been drug out. And I'm sure you guys know on this 52nd Avenue too, it's supposed to have been completed last year. Well, this year it's been nothing but rip up and repair and puts, I think today there's still currently cones going down 52nd Avenue. So I'm gonna, just throw that out there a little bit too. Just that, again, a lot of mistakes must have been made because they are tearing that road completely back up and redoing the whole works again. Back to Aaron, he has, I think, been in contact with me, but it was kind of promised it's gonna be in June, then it was gonna be in July, and now we're in September 1st. And they did come in. I had just a little bit of improvements done in a couple areas. They came in with a skid steer and dumped some black dirt in a low spot that they had marked. But by no means is it finished landscape. And for my property, it affects me. And I would say that I'm probably one of the select ones there on 52nd Avenue that I've got, the nice frontage in front of the business there. And I paid, I would say $10,000, let's say, to have my landscaping done, and I did the poured brick in front, and with the shrubs and that kind of thing. Well, the game plan there is to have that so you can weed whack up alongside of that, and the dirt needs to be a set level below it. That didn't happen. Basically, they come in there with skid steers and kind of load it over it. I can fix that. I just don't feel that I should have to when I'm paying large assessment specials on it, So any help that you guys can give me, definitely I'll give you my contact information. I'd like to visit with Aaron, excuse me. And my opinion is, and I've got a big industrial lawnmower that I mow my property with, and I have been chewing up blades and all kinds of fun stuff this entire year just trying to maintain a frontage because I had weeds that were, foot high throughout. That had I not knocked down, still would, a lot of that stuff would have just, it looked ugly. But I would really like to be able to take a push mower and mow that property. And in my opinion, that's finished great. I shouldn't have to have, and I have a 72-inch bad boy lawnmower, 33 horse, huge. And I'm still driving over tire ruts, that kind of thing. So I'm done complaining about it, but I really hope that Aaron works with me and that we get that to look as good as some of the prior work that was completed.
Yeah, that's certainly not the condition we want to leave it. So I'll be sure to get you my contact information as well. And if you're not pleased with working through Aaron, you can certainly reach out to me as well, and I can get involved as well. But
I appreciate your time. Like I said, please take into consideration that irregular shape of my lot. I do plan on, eventually being able to put a building and that kind of thing on there. And as I've looked at some of that, I know that I'm very limited. I've got a 25-foot easement on the back of the property for the drain ditch. And then I've got the, even if we look at that 35 drop back in the front, counting those lines, and I did the math on it, but I've got a lot of square footage of the property that I really can't do anything with, so I figured I'd throw that out there. Please take a look and consider that as we look at it for the assessments.
Thank you very much.
Could we bring the aerial photo back up on there? That's one of the questions I was going to ask you is there any easements or setbacks or anything limiting you from developing that irregular shape?
Yeah,
in the
there is.
future?
And I've actually got, I printed out actually CAD drawing of that portion of that which I deducted, and I can definitely set this with you guys. But so here's the skinny. So the assessed property for 5402. There's 136,589 foot squared assessed. So that's what I'm paying on for the land taxes. The usable space of that 136,000 is 94,000 of usable space due to the setbacks. Yeah, that map actually shows it right there. You zoom in on it. You see the setback along the back for the drain ditch 27. You see a 10-foot utility easement in the front. And then obviously you've got side setback. If you're gonna do any building, you've got a 5 or a 10-foot side setback on it. So then that's just 5402. The 5406 comes into the same thing. It's got 43,917 and the usable square footage is only 36,000. So.
But you're not really disputing the square footage on 5406, right? It's just the one that fronts 52nd?
Well, when you look at the dollar values, it doesn't jump out at me nearly as much. You know, because I'm looking at 240,000 for the 5402 and I'm only looking at 12,000 for the 5406. So I'm like, you know, I'm not gonna argue the 5406. I just wanna try to get the 5402 reduced.
Okay. Yeah, those are the questions I had, that when if we're gonna discuss this, I think that would come in handy.
Sure.
And if you want to leave your CAD drawing with us, that'd be
Yeah.
great as well.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
There was another individual who also filed a protest on the 52nd Avenue project, and that would be Ken Pollock. And we have Mr. Pollock's letter, as well as some documentation that he submitted in support of his request. And for purposes of any consideration of Mr. Pollock's request, I will need to recuse myself because I would have a conflict of interest.
No, that was it. Thank you.
And it is now 9:46. I don't see any other individuals that have any, that have submitted anything in terms of questions or concerns. And so with the approval of the rest of the company,
Did you have something else you wanted to talk about?
you do need to use the podium. Thank you. It just, we need to be able to hear and see you.
Oh, I got it. I just have a picture of a curbing that I need to have more fill put in because what they did is not really sufficient.
And you can
My
certainly,
lawnmower just sinks.
you can certainly submit that to Tom and he'll take a look at it and it'll help him identify where to look.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, with the permission of the other commissioners, we will call the meeting to an end. We good?
Aye.
All right, we are finished. Thank you.
Thank you.